Camilo Fernandez Cabrera. A confident yet narcissistic man, this dancer has taken his celebrity status and talent to heart. Treating love like a currency and a sport, he believes he is a blessing to the rest of the world, and as the peak of beauty for others to see in the spotlight. Hey guys, I'm Chugawa Yao, and this series is covering the lore of the series Eternal Return. This episode will be covering the playable character Camilo, and we will be investigating his file info, motivations, VF affinity, likes and dislikes, relationships, romanceability, and the critiques I have of his lore from both Eternal Return and from the first game, Immortal Soul. With that, let's get started. Camilo expresses himself in total honesty. With a fiery being for dance and beauty, he conveys his intentions loud and clear, though most of the time it's about himself. Whenever something meets his ideal, Camilo will speak in his home tongue, in Espanol. Anytime he includes his first language, that is his way of showing his closest seals of Camilo. Most of the time, it surrounds the idea of beauty and artistic expression, such as his good looks, his passion for dancing, or the weight of the scenario, both amazing and awful to his heart. This being said, it's actually hard to pin down why Camilo is part of the experiments off the bat. We'll unravel this slowly as this video goes on, but when it comes to the first impressions of his involvement, it's conflictive. Lumia Island is hidden from the rest of the world, with only the most powerful on Earth either organizing or funding the experiment. This does not make it a grand stage that would be publicly broadcast for his beauty to be showcased. When it comes to his background information, the worldly connections he left behind are the royal arts, fans, empty relationships, and an unelaborated mother and father. The only thing that persists with Camilo is mentioned in his files: his sister, Catalina Fernandez Cabrera. Almost every Aglayan staff member who interacts with Camilo brings up his involvement with her or on an aspect that connects that idea back to her. Catalina was possibly the only other person in his world who was considered more beautiful than himself. When she took to the stage, she performed greatness to the awe of everyone. This was not actually an issue of him being jealous. He was proud and happy of his sister to be so successfully beautiful. She was also engaged. But with that upcoming step in Catalina's life, she was also mentioned in an interview that she would retire so that she could raise her family. This caused Camilo to go into a plot that he would prevent his sister's engagement so that she could continue being a dancer. This deception succeeded in Catalina's plans for marriage to be broken, but so too was her heart. Catalina committed suicide soon after. This was a tragedy done by his hand. The aftermath made Camilo vow to stay honest instead of a schemer, with a homage to his sister by the same long strand of braided hair that he visually shares with Catalina's appearance. Camilo has amazing finesse across the board, both for his skill set in the game and also in general. It is his physical performance that is behind his abilities. So while there is no in-game evidence that shows that he exudes a level of vital force, I wouldn't be surprised if something came about that connected his history to dragging out an expression that is either ugly or at least the opposite of the way he conveys. I will elaborate on this idea a bit later. In general, one could say that he just likes beauty and the things that come with it, like the endless compliments he expects for just being in someone's sights. However, there are bits here and there that at least solidify this. The first is that he always has a rose on his person. It's unknown how he procures a rose wherever he goes, but Camilo will always have one. Love languages, while catered to the idea of romance, are more simply goals for him to gain, which is why he has been seen countlessly flirting with anyone and everyone, because it's not the pursuit of genuine love, but that he is to be seen, heard, and acknowledged. Camilo also stays honest about his dislikes. If Camilo utilizes a trap, he has a voice line that he claims is heartbreaking to be used. Although, in contradiction, the other voice line that he has for traps was that he will also say there's a charm of secrecy in using one. I could work with this, I swear. Camilo also has a mental tug-of-war the more kills he accrues in the game. With some voice lines, he will mention that he was in a passionate dance, or try to associate their death that had some level of emotional beauty behind it. Other times, he will just grimace at the sight, flatly calling the situation disgusting or ugly, sometimes apologizing and even gagging at the scene of blood. Another sign of disdain is whenever someone touches his hair. When another test subject, Leon, touched Camilo's hair, Camilo retaliated and scolded Leon for not asking permission. And even when Leon did ask for permission after the fact, he told him absolutely not. While not directly stated, I suspect it is the long braid that is not supposed to be touched, because that is his current connection to his deceased sister. And just like how no one should touch his sister like her ex-fiancé, neither shall the other test subjects touch her memory that he wears. Familial relationships bring up that Camilo has both his parents, and again, it is his dead sister that has any bearing and meaning to him. The rest of the world are just tools for his goals. The stages, the countless people he's sported himself with. There isn't even a mentor mentioned, as his talent for dancing seemed to be as innate since childhood. So this is clearly a different day, and a different recording. Normally this section would be me having to showcase some voice lines a test subject may have when seeing another test subject, and both are not normally found in-game and not triggerable elsewhere. This is when I would go to the fan kit and grab the voice lines from there. However, when I looked into the fan kit for Eternal Return, and specifically not just for Camilo's voice lines, but for multiple characters' voice lines, it's just empty. I also reached out to support to see if I can get help on the matter, because they actually had helped me out the first time I started the series, and they officially told me they were not going to help. So the last ones that I can work with in terms of relationships that aren't really that interesting, to be honest, is that everyone's just pretty much irritated in the presence of Camilo. There is Mai, who is irritated by his loudness, Adela, who finds him unpredictable, and Emma, who finds him overbearing. You can't fix him. He may swing both ways, but he also swings and throws the bat away. At least you may succeed in a spicy conversation and at most a one-night stand, but a genuine relationship with Camilo seems nigh impossible because you aren't his sister, as the Golian staff would suggest, or because I don't recommend anyone to seek a significant other that is like this fuckboy. And if the implication that his one true incestuous romance idea wasn't the only thing given evidence, then you aren't Catalina. And if you truly must, if you really want to be with Camilo, then you gotta be all-encompassing to his world. Be the most beautiful thing that he's ever encountered. It must also be expressed in the physical arts, because he only cares about the visuals, not the depth, and not the cracked diamond in the rough sort of idea. You must become perfection, and no one is truly perfect to Camilo. Not even himself. The reason I say not even himself is because he still has voice lines that he will admit were a mistake on his part, but he is at least still honest about his performance. And this is the aspect I feel could take his lore in the future whenever Nimble Neuron decides to do something with their lore. Because if it was to be ever his turn, I suspect it will be about self-loathing or conflict, because he is the reason for the trauma in his life, as well as the basis of being truthful. He can only cope with the foundation of beauty for so long. I believe he hates himself despite those saying he only loves himself, because every so often in his voice lines, he's a flip-flopper. I also fear I could be straight up wrong, because the delivery and the tone of all his voice lines do not actually support this idea of self-hatred. His pride shines all the way through with the delivery of the voice lines, but his backstory leads me to believe that he hides this idea because he doesn't want to return and confront this part of himself, the one that killed Catalina. He has a chance to be not as two-dimensional as he wants you to believe he is, and I believe the real motivations for him being behind the experiments is that Camilo caught wind of the technological power that Aglaia has behind it. If they can create arch cells for a seemingly immortal human body, then what if they could succeed in resurrecting his sister? The experiments could result in bringing back the one thing he cared about outside of himself. We can even get a bit weirder with this. What if the career money Camilo obtained was used to transplant his dead sister's hair to his own scalp? Or if he kept her corpse, or at least a part of her body, for this idea of resurrection? I believe these are the ideas that could make the motivation and reason for why Camilo is part of the experiments by expanding on this aspect. He is currently an okay character for lore, but the potential of some more vile or villainous storytelling could be in the future for him. I also wish they kept the whole sister braided hair thing consistent. In all of Immortal Soul and his skins, they keep the braided hair about his lore and his sister. However, in Eternal Return, with the Blue Orchid Camilo skin, this does not actually keep up. It is just a long ponytail in his art. Thankfully, they do remember to keep this idea in his latest skin, to this video's date, Popstar Camilo. Well, I hope that was interesting. Maybe the brainworm keeps me for the near future when it comes to me making these types of videos. But for right now, I'm just kind of keeping it simple. Also, Jignut, you're fat. Take that, Camilo rep. See you in ours.